on substance. So I think I mean, I teed that guy up and I was like, fuck him, dude. Like, we can roll his ass right out the door. It's not going to hurt my feelings. So I don't know, man. Maybe Jack Beck, Besh. It's
Besh.
Besh.
It's Besh. Yeah, I've been saying
Yeah.
Beck this whole time, like an idiot.
I wanted to correct you, but I don't like correcting you
You
in
should.
real time. I'm like, this is going to be rude. People think I'm rude. I'm actually just strategically hilarious. It's kind of like being rude if you can pull it off. Otherwise, if you can't pull it off, it's exactly like being rude. So that's a little bit about me that you already knew.
That's fair.
Monangai, Monangai,
Monangai.
Monangai. What am I joking? I don't ever say the names first.
I took a Lisa on your heart. I took a Lisa on your heart. Can I Lisa, Lisa Bart? Can I Lisa, Lisa Bart? Can I Lisa, Lisa Bart?
Welcome back, everybody. You are Rough Draft Research. You are the audience, and together we're on a quest for Dynasty Domination. How's it going over there, Daniel?
Pretty good, man. Can't hardly contain myself. Draft coming
Mm,
quick.
two
And
weeks.
this, yeah, dude, 2 weeks. I personally um have been kind of nosing the skill positions, and it looks like there's a lot of talent outside of that realm. So it's going to be an interesting draft. I'm going to learn a lot. I assume you're stoked. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm very stoked. WrestleMania is next week
Oh,
and then the draft, so it's a good set of weeks here coming
yeah.
up. Um, and yeah, I'm good. We're about to narrow it down to the Sweet 16, which I'm always, that's exciting. I love that last couple episodes we do for the tournament. So yeah, having a good time.
Nothing sweeter than the last 16 is what I always say,
That's
or something
fair.
like that. But all
Well,
right, dude. Well, fucking
yeah, before we
party
can
on.
get to the Sweet 16, we got to narrow down a couple more rounds of the round of 32. We did the West and Midwest last week, so hopefully you were there with us. And now we are doing the Atlantic and the South portions of the bracket, and then we will narrow it all the way down to the Sweet 16. But we're going to start over in the Atlantic bracket with our number one seed running back Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina going up against the number nine seed the only small school standout left, Marcus Yarns, running back out of Delaware. I don't think the small school is going to last past this round, however.
No, no. I mean, no.
Yeah. I mean, I was the one pushing Marcus Yarns last week over Raheem Sanders.
Oh yeah, that was a fun conversation.
And I like Marcus Jones, I do, and I still stand by that decision. I do also kind of see his potential ceiling. He has great speed for on tape. He did run a 4.45, which isn't like crazy fast, but he looks insanely fast on tape. He's a home run hitter. He gives you a dynamic presence out of the backfield, almost 300 yards receiving and five touchdowns last season, and 800 yards and 11 scores through the air as a Delaware Blue Hen. And I just think, I mean, if you give this guy any room, that's what you're going to see on his tape is that he just breaks it and takes it to the house. I mean, the Penn State game, he broke a 65-yard touchdown run. He was basically untouched, just as immediately hit the hole and was gone. Rhode Island, when he was playing them, kind of the same deal, 40 to 50-yard run, just straight up the middle. But he does lack power and the ability to run through tackles. He's very, very limited in that fashion. He's also, I don't think he necessarily has the best vision. I think he has decent vision. I don't think he has very good patience though, because he is that home run hitter and he does like to kind of just, swing for the fences every single time. So he's hitting what he thinks is the hole as soon as he sees it. Um, Sometimes that can lead to some negative or neutral plays, but it also leads to all his biggest plays. He's also like not a fantastic pass protector, which is, it's going to limit his ability to get on the field in the NFL if you can't protect the quarterback as a running back. It's like a super underrated stat. And then like speaking on the physicality and running through tackles, like he doesn't force a lot of missed tackles, even though he scores a lot um from far out. He only forced 33 missed tackles this past season, which was third from the bottom in our entire tournament. So he's someone that I'm like super interested just to kind of see where he falls, like what round, where he ends up going. And I wouldn't mind having him on my roster in like deeper leagues. But I'm skeptical that he'll ever be a consistent fantasy presence, unless he kind of develops more to his game and then keeps the speed and the dynamic part of him that keeps that kind of sets him apart. But maybe putting on a little more weight and becoming more physical would help him. But I still like him, and like I said, I liked him more than Sanders last week, but he gets thoroughly walloped this week.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to spin this yarn into a beautiful sweater today,
Hey.
but no, he had definitely some great traits, but I think he hit it. Like the highlights were great, but the consistency obviously wasn't there because you're talking about 65-yard touchdowns and breaking home runs, but when we're totaling under, 850 yards on the season, it kind of just
Hmm.
tells you that those plays were a little bit few and far between. But I don't know. I thought he was kind of a serious guy, really had some interesting intensity on those big runs. And I thought it was pretty cool how he lined up like in the slot and he ran his routes really well
Mm.
for a running back. So I think he offers I don't know, some depth to his game, but he went from 15 touchdowns in 2023 to only six on the ground last year. Um, and to me, that kind of just spoke towards like, I mean, the usage was pretty consistent between the two. And if you can't break more touchdowns than that at this competition level, it's a red flag for me.
That's
Um,
fair.
but anyway, say what you will. He was a fun player to watch for sure. But I mean, you can't. Hampton is he's hitting homers, so
Yeah, for sure.
definitely knocking this guy out of the competition.
Absolutely. So Marcus Jones, congratulations on making it to the round of 32, but Omarion and Hampton will be representing the Sweet North Carolina in the Sweet 16. So we'll move on to our number 5 seed, Bhayshul Tuten, running back out of Virginia Tech, going up against our 4 seed, Elijah Arroyo, tight end out of Miami. This one was kind of hard for me. It sucks that like Arroyo has not uh done any workouts this offseason. It's hard to see where he's at compared to some of these other guys. I mean, it doesn't necessarily always matter, but it would have been fun to see. And then Tootin, like he's been productive for 3 seasons in a row at NC State and A&T. He had 1,370 yards and 13 touchdowns before he transferred to North Carolina, and then 2,000 yards, or sorry, he was at North Carolina A&T, or whatever, some small school. He had 1,370 yards, 13 touchdowns before he transferred to Virginia Tech, where he's combined for 2,000 yards over 2 seasons and 25 touchdowns. Also worth noting, before 2024, he had around or over 200 yards receiving in 3 straight seasons before he transferred over to Virginia Tech. So it may not look like he had that much if you just look at this year as far as the receiving game, only 81 yards. But the other years he was pretty good through there. Um, and then Arroyo is super interesting. He intrigued me. He's had 590 yards this season, 7 touchdowns, and he flashes on tape. He looks really fast. But what worries me is in his previous 3 seasons, he combined for 157 yards and 1 touchdown. So it's really like one decent year of production. Then he got hurt, hasn't really worked out at all. So that makes me lean Tootin on this matchup, where I know, but you're not a big Tootin guy, I don't believe.
Well, I don't think that you can put Bhayshul Tuten down in this matchup. So
Okay.
I do have some reservations on Mr. Tuten, but yet again, I believe he's going to have to wait till the future for me to fully disclose what they are.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, but I agree with you, man. I liked Arroyo quite a bit. I've still considered him kind of a sleeper because this is a deeper tight end class, but I thought the routes were really great and the blocking was pretty solid too. Um, there were some parts of his game he could improve, like the physicality.
Hmm.
Um, but I thought he was agile and did like a pretty complete job for a tight end while running more like wide receiver traditional style route running.
Hmm.
So that jumped off the screen, just like the moves and the ability for him to get deeper. He really seemed like he got downfield a lot better than most of the tight ends that I'm used to seeing, and his A dot reflects that. He had 11.1, which was ranked fourth among 52 draft eligible tight ends with over 30 targets coming out in this year's class. So he really did have a nice little bit of the depth on him as far
Hmm.
as the targets and like you're saying, he didn't have anything going on prior to this year, which is definitely kind of a red flag with
Hmm.
tight ends. You see it more often than you'd like, where you have to project off of their last year. And we
Yeah,
talk about
that's
like
fair.
development taking time, but um, he did have 7 touchdowns this year, which was the top five out of this draft class for tight ends, and having 16.9 yards per catch.
Mm.
That's number one amongst this draft class for tight ends. So I think he offers big time upside, and he's definitely a guy I keep an eye on. But I don't want to
Mhm.
get in that pattern with tight ends that project well. We get I can't I'm like spacing on some of the names, but between the Jets and the Texans, they pretty much drafted all these guys and they just disappear. So
Mhm.
your Kenny Yeboahs and such.
Yeah.
So he's kind of in that territory. So I'm looking at draft capital for him because he definitely showed huge upside in 2024.
Yeah, no, Brevin Jordan. That would be
Brevin
another
Jordan.
Brevin
Yep.
Jordan.
Yep.
Yeah, like you're kind of saying, I had a note here. We've seen these like straight receiving tight ends come into the league and kind of suffer, especially early. I mean, even like Mike Gesicki, Greg Dulcich, Evan Ingram to a certain point, Kyle Pitts, if you want to get really crazy on
Whatever,
it.
dude.
And then like Robert Tonyan was a guy that like flashed for a season and then disappeared. And I think Arroyo falls kind of in that camp, at least right now. He's still developing as a route runner and a blocker, but he's not bad at either of those things. Just kind of like could use some more time. But I'm with you. He's worth keeping an eye on at a premium position. I know I'm a proponent of having a strong tight end. I'm a guy who likes to go out and get your Trace McBrides and your Travis Kelce's and stuff. So anybody that has potential to flash like that, especially depending on the offense he lands on, I'm gonna be intrigued by him and take him. But yeah, I think Tootin just kind of scoots by him here.
Give it to the toot toot man.
Toot toot. All right, so our 5 seed Bhayshul Tootin moving on to the Sweet 16, and the 4 seed Elijah Arroyo hanging tight in the round of 32. Moving on to our number 6 seed Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers. Anybody that listened to our round of 64 knew I gave up on his name. So Monangai. So apologies to Mr. Monangai, running back out of Rutgers, but he is going up against the number 3 seed Xavier Restrepo. Um, I probably need to apologize to Monangai again, because on initial watch, I don't really care for him, and that has not gotten better.
Oh,
So
what?
I do think Restrepo moves on, at least in my opinion, but
Oh, no contest. Yeah, Restrepo, dude, for all the red flags, he's had a nice little path here.
hmm.
So we'll get into that with the
Okay,
Sweet
yeah.
16.
We will get into that. So, yeah, diving back into Monangai's tape, it didn't it didn't really like get me excited. His top speed isn't like super crazy. His burst is a 41st percentile. His RAS is a 4.29. His receiving work, a total of 224 yards in 4 seasons. Um, he just seems like a nice rotational guy to add. And then you see like PFF compares him to Zach Moss, and then
Okay.
Player Profile compares him to Bilal Powell. And to
Oh
me,
yeah.
that's like, yeah, okay, sure. A guy that can come in, isn't gonna fuck it up, isn't gonna do anything crazy, but can get you like 2 or 3 yards when you need him to, or more than that. If he has some decent weeks because there's guys missing or injuries or whatever, I can see that like a Zach Moss, but I just don't see there being much more to him than that. I mean, he's been productive his last 2 seasons, over 1,200 yards in back-to-back years for Rutgers and 21 rushing touchdowns. But when I watch him, he's just like a powerful guy that does try to run through you, but that's kind of it. And it just doesn't get me super juiced.
Yeah, he's like a little mighty man out there. He's got
Hmm.
a lot of energy,
Yeah.
but it doesn't translate necessarily. Um, but yeah, he screamed average, despite having like, around 250 carries each of the past years, and like you said, over 1,200 yards each of
Hmm.
those years. Um, but he was super average, except for two categories. I noticed his pass blocking was pretty awesome, and he was pretty fearless up the middle. So he's like physical, engaging near the line of scrimmage. PFF gave him the third highest pass blocking grade in
Oh,
this
wow.
class, and that's going to turn heads. And he matched the same carry number and missed tackles forced as Caleb Johnson. So he had 66, which is top 10 in this class. But like you're saying, he's average. He only had 13 touchdowns this past year and 5 yards per carry, so he's not doing some of the explosive things. The after the contact ability is not great, but this guy did have 670-ish rush attempts over 4 years and never once fumbled.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
so I know, like in the past, we've talked about these things, fumbling and pass blocking as being
Yeah.
good traits, but then you put them in this class, and it's like it doesn't matter what you do, buddy, because
Hmm.
there's six guys that just scored 20 touchdowns last year, and
Yeah.
that doesn't even include the Ohio State guys. Like there's so much talent that
Hmm.
this guy's gonna get buried. So anything
Absolutely.
you want to forecast off of the few good traits kind of doesn't really get him anywhere anyway.
Yeah, and maybe in a different class he would have a little bit more. Maybe last year he would have a little bit more juice. But yeah, just with the class and just everything, like you're saying, just yeah, he's not terrible. I do think, like, say the Packers were to draft him, I wouldn't be upset if they spent like a fifth or a sixth rounder on him just to kind of fill out the RB room. Now, I don't think we need it, but just using it as an example, because I do think, like you said, I didn't realize he hadn't fumbled, but like that's a good trait. So he's not gonna screw the game away for you, but I just don't think he's going to give you much, especially not in terms of like a fantasy guy.
No fantasies, only reality. I'm sorry, the reality is you can't beat out our man Restrepo.
You cannot. So the number 3 seed, Xavier Restrepo, moving on, and Kyle Monangai staying put in the round of 32. So last matchup of the Atlantic bracket, then we've got our 10 seed RJ Harvey going up against the number 2 seed RJ Harvey, running back out of UCF, and the 2 seed Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. Where'd you go with this one?
I don't know if I made a decision. This was
Mhm.
probably the hardest one of the night, for me personally. And no, like without a doubt, this was probably the only difficult one for me.
Gotcha.
I really like Harvey, like big time,
Hmm.
and I kind of want to go that way, but it's the 1-1, and we've got extreme depth in this running back class. So I'm
Hmm.
kind of leaning Kim Ward, despite like personally being a big time Harvey fan.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I like Harvey a lot. I did lean Ward on
Okay.
this. But I like Harvey potentially as like the leader of the second tier of running backs.
Yes.
I think there's a very clear drop off after Genty, Caleb Johnson, Judkins, Henderson, Hampton, and Scattaboo. So
Okay.
that's 5 or 6 guys, and then RJ Harvey
Yeah,
is
I'll have
like
to
right
count
there.
those names. Yeah.
Let's see. Genty, Johnson, Judkins, Henderson, Hampton, Scattaboo, 6.
Okay.
So you're talking about
Yeah.
the seventh guy, as opposed to like the top quarterback. And I think like the
Yeah.
second tier is like Harvey, Sampson, Neal, Tuten,
Yes.
and the
Okay.
like those
Yes.
kind of guys. And I do think Harvey clears the rest of that group.
He's in
Um,
the league with Sampson. I'll give you that. I like that.
yeah, I completely agree with that. He's got a great first couple of steps. He's super quick on his side to side movements. Super fun to watch. First of all, just if you just want to watch some good running back tape, go check out some RJ Harvey. He has great burst, 88th percentile, good speed at 4.4. Um, I do think I saw more of the burst on film than I did like the long speed. I think he can just eat up yardage really, really quickly, but then he kind of gets caught. But he is a dual threat too, 200 yards receiving the last 3 seasons, including a 2022 season where he was not the main guy in the backfield. He still got over 200 yards in the receiving. Super productive as a rusher the past 2 seasons, 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns in 2023, up to that to 1,500 yards and 22 touchdowns in 2024. And I mean, he's elusive, 72 missed forced tackles over the past 2 seasons. And according to PFF, he is in the 95th percentile in missed tackles per attempt,
Wow.
which is, that's great. He's not perfect though. He does lack power. He lacks the power to run through people. He does
Smaller.
try. So that, I mean, that's nice to see. He's
He's
scrappy.
trying.
He fights through for the extra yards, but it just doesn't technically work all the time. The
Sure.
pass pro is a bit of a question mark. And he lacks the physicality to make like a massive impact there. Um, and I just don't think he beats out Ward. Ward's kind of like in the Mahomes-esque family. I'm not putting them in the same tier or nearly at the
People
same
don't like it
level.
when you say stuff like that, Christian.
But what I mean by that is just athletic, has a huge arm, can make any throw on the field, and is like a gunslinger. He's like in that family of of quarterbacks, not like a not on the same tier at all. I don't think they're the same prospect, but like as far as like a guy who can run around and still throw it to anywhere on the field, it makes sense. And so I just think with that upside and then Harvey being in such a deep class, I also think it's going to cause Harvey to get like slept on because a
Yeah,
lot of the
that's kind
team,
of how I feel about it. Him. It's like he's the kind of guy that's going to get overlooked.
yeah,
He's 24, so that
mhm,
kind of leaves him outside of the top five automatically in this
yeah,
class.
absolutely.
Um, but I really do think he had 25 tackles to his name and 6.8 yards per carry number, which is pretty badass. I mean, he touched on a lot of the good things about him. I do think his level of intensity and his vision and decision making, uh, really good as those first 5 yards of every run. But I gotta say, man, one of the things for me that made me like this guy, I loved him out of the gate just off of film, but once I started digging um, in the 2023 year of the guys in this draft class, he was top five in yards, missed tackles, forced, yards per carry, and touchdowns.
Oh, wow.
So back-to-back years over 1,400, like you were saying, but not a lot of the high-end talented guys on this draft class had that kind of a 2023. So for him to produce back-to-back years at that high level, I think you got to give him a little bit of extra love for that. But
Mm. No, I'm with you. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we are getting to the Sweet 16, so some of these guys that we do like a
mhm,
lot are going to start losing.
yeah, I'll keep the light on for him.
And speaking of getting slept on, uh, I do think he could have like a similar value and kind of career arc as Aaron Jones did. in 2018 in that super deep running back class because Aaron Jones was a fifth round pick who ended up being like an awesome fantasy running back. And like I could see that happening to Harvey because a lot of the teams that are going to need running backs might take one earlier, and then that leaves Harvey to kind of keep falling. And I do think somebody's going to get a steal, which might help you get him as a steal in your rookie draft as well.
Love it. Yeah, I hate
So
to see it. He could replace CEH, dude. He could be that little Mighty
there you go.
Mouse that we were
There,
always looking for.
there
We're
it
not
is.
homers.
Not
We
at
don't
all.
only talk about the Packers and the Chiefs here.
I have mentioned the Packers quite a bit this episode already, huh? Well,
Yeah.
anyway, 10 seed RJ Harvey, this is the end of your tournament, and the 2 seed Cam Ward is moving on to the Sweet 16, which gives us an Atlantic bracket Sweet 16 of Omarion Hampton against Bhayshul Tuten and a little Miami on Miami action, Xavier Restrepo versus Cam Ward. So that is your Sweet 16 for the Atlantic bracket, and we're gonna move on to the final round of 32 with the southern portion of the bracket. And we got starting off with our 1 seed, Dylan Sampson, running back out of Tennessee, going up against the 8 seed, Brashard Smith, running back out of SMU. This wasn't a tough matchup, but I do think like Smith has some stuff that I like about him. But I'm definitely to me it's Samson.
Yeah, you can't really mess with this one.
Yeah,
I mean, the dude pretty much just put up more touchdowns in a single season than Smith had in 4 total seasons, even though, that's not necessarily representative of Smith's entire career. But he had a
yeah,
big year. Samson had a good year this past year.
yeah. No, absolutely. But yeah, Smith. So he transferred to SMU this past year and became a starter. He's super fast, ran a 4.39, but his burst score was abysmal, which I love that for running backs. That burst score, it was the 28th percentile, which is not something that I like. Um, Kind of similar to Monangai, but like in a different way. I think he is a good piece to add to a backfield, but I just don't think he'll be like a full-time starter at the next level. PFF and Player Profiler both compare Brashard Smith to Naeem Hines, which
Okay.
he's a good player, but is exactly in that role of like he's like the second or third running back on our roster and can come in and be fast and do some stuff, but just isn't necessarily gonna ever take the load. Like even when people got hurt, unless it was the whole running back room, that would be the only time Naeem Hines would really take over. Obviously, comparisons aren't the end of the line, um, but just in this matchup specifically, Sampson looked great in the SEC, and then Smith looked pretty good against like subpar competition. Um,
Sub- Ooh.
Maybe not subpar, but compared to the SEC. But yeah, I don't know. I mean Smith is fast. He's pretty agile, pretty elusive, 52 force missed tackles, which isn't amazing, but it's also not bad. I just think he needs to develop more to really be a 3 down guy, and I'm not sure that'll happen.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, there's things like even the good things about his game aren't consistent.
Hmm.
Like I thought he had good awareness. He's like pausing and sidestepping and kind of really ad-libbing a lot. He had a fluidity to his game that was pretty cool in the open field. But he also like ran into his own line sometimes. So it's not like ironclad. There's
Yeah.
ups and downs to it, but he keeps his eyes open, and he's one of those guys that has a good instinct for when a play is falling apart. So like he can kind of dart through congestion or just commit to a situation that's not great. Rather than like you see guys that kind of they're like, oh no, what's happening? And then they get taken down for a loss. He's kind of the guy that wants to, get whatever he can out of a play. So give him some credit for that. Um, but yeah, I mean, the production was decent for sure this past year, over 1,300. And then the receiving work was not bad at all either.
Yeah.
So he's got some balanced potential. But like you're saying, I mean, if Genty's his own tier and we've already established tier 2 and tier 3, this guy is probably Maybe back in tier three, probably leading up tier four.
Yeah.
Um, so it's rough, man. It's definitely not a victory for him here.
No, not at all. And it's just, yeah, it's such a deep running back class that none of these fringy guys are going to get any traction whatsoever. But he was fun to watch. And I do think, yeah, weirdly is a really good like receiver. I guess that's not weird, but like this class sometimes I do think could use some more like dual threat receiving backs. And so Smith kind of helps there. But I just think that's where he's going to end up being his main role is just kind of like a third down guy
Mm.
with some speed.
Yeah, he's
Which
credited as being a wide receiver for Miami before transferring and changing positions. So
yeah, which makes a lot of
translates.
sense to me. Yeah. Um,
Interesting.
so the number one seed, Dylan Sampson, moving on, and Brashard Smith is donezo for our tournament. Going up, the next matchup here is the five seed Jack Bech, wide receiver out of TCU, going up against the four seed Mason Taylor, tight end out of LSU. Kind of, we keep having this conversation. I think Bech is like one of the leaders of the second tier of wide receivers in this
Mm.
class to me. And I just I don't know. Taylor, I think, is a solid, like all around prospect, decent athletic score, okay production. Low touchdown numbers though, like 6 touchdowns in 3 seasons, which isn't great. And I don't know. I think he's fine. I guess it's hard for me to get really excited about him. Whereas Besh, I think definitely moves on here, and I do like as a prospect. But yeah, how are you feeling on this one?
Oh yeah, Mason Taylor, two first names, you're out of here, buddy. So
That's fair.
yeah, the Besh thing, it's interesting that you say it's leading up the second tier of wide receivers because I'm like, how many people are in the first tier? It's like two or
Oh, I guess that's fair. I'd have to like see how I tier it.
yeah, I'm just kind of I guess this is it just brings in the question of this wide receiver class, which to me is still uh
Well, I would say you got Tet. I would put
MG,
yeah, Matthew Golden. I would put Luther Burden. I would put Abuka. I would put Noel in there in that
Higgins.
first tier. Higgins. And then I think you start getting like maybe Trey Harris makes that first tier, so maybe six
I'd
guys
say so.
again.
Okay.
And then like a Besh.
Okay. I'm with you. And I agree that the separation between those first two and the next four, it probably isn't
Yeah.
that huge. So I'm with you. I like that. And thank you for clarifying.
I
I
got you.
definitely agree with you though that Mason Taylor not getting any victory here.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I thought he was like, dude, he was just a little too comfortable with not fighting coverage. He was just like, I'll stand next to a defender. Like this is the buddy
Hmm.
system. Um, and his routes were really shallow and not finished. And I just thought, I don't know. I don't know. As a blocker, he was good. So he's got some options there. But I wasn't overly impressed. I don't know. I want to see some like the tight end position. He played kind of a traditional style,
Hmm.
where it's like to really make a name for yourself, you have to kind of be an X factor or like a focal point, and he never really got to that level. So best year here at 550 yards with 2 touchdowns. It's like, all right, I'm not sweating to get after this dude.
Yeah. No, I'm completely with you. Like, I wanted to see more, and especially because it's worth noting that like Daniel Jeremiah has him ranked as his 32 prospect in his list of top 50.
Wow.
Which when I saw that and kind of the buzz around Mason Taylor, I was like, oh, cool, this is gonna be some fun tape to watch. And then I kind of just like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like it just there wasn't a lot of spark, wasn't like a lot of crazy stuff to really sink my teeth into, in my opinion. Jeremiah also just on a note, like he has like 4 or 5 tight ends in his top 50 this year, so he really likes this class. I do think
It's
Taylor's like a pretty good route runner, like pretty decent with a big catch radius. I just think his ceiling is like a solid tight end, like solid, but not a game-changing roster type of guy, like a budget store Heath Miller at best or something, if that makes sense. Which would speak to the like more traditional style that you're talking about, where it's just like good blocker, goes out, catches some passes, might catch you a touchdown every 3 weeks, but isn't anything you can really hang your hat on, at least in my opinion.
yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely has potential, but not potential to excite me or to beat out Besh in this conversation.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, all right. So the 5 seed Jack Bech moving on while Mason Taylor is staying put. Two left before we get to our Sweet 16.
Man,
And we've got our 6 seed
oh fuck.
wide receiver Isaiah Bond out of Texas going up against the 14 seed QB Jaxson Dart out of Ole Miss. And before I get into this, I do want to say that I wrote all of this before it came out that Isaiah Bond turned himself in for sexual assault. Now, with that being said, it needs to be said that he denies all the allegations, says they're patently false. The reason he turned him in was just to cooperate with the authorities. So, no idea what's going on there. We'll kind of let that story play out. But his draft hype was kind of built around speed. PFF labeled it as world class speed.
Class.
Not buying that at all. Like he ran a decent 40. He looks fast on tape, but he doesn't look like crazy, crazy fast. He's also small, 5'11", 180. He's never had a season break over 700 yards or 6 touchdowns. This season, he had one game over 100 yards, and that was
Yep.
against the University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners,
Meet me.
that real powerhouse of a school. 10 of his games were under 60 yards, and seven of those were below 30. So to me, he's like a speedster with not very good size, who's boom or busty. At least this season was more bust than boom. I'm starting to genuinely think we should have put Donta Thornton over him. At least he's like tall and fast. I guess what I'm saying is I didn't like Bond very much. I think
Well,
he has good
I
routes.
mean, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, no, I think he has good routes. His comeback route is a highlight. He has quick feet, but he gives you very little in terms of blocking. He accelerates to the top speed pretty quickly, but then if you like breathe on him or hit him, he falls down. He's just not a prospect I'm going to be interested in really at all. And then now I think his draft stock's even going to be more hurt because even if he didn't do what he's accused of doing, which hopefully he didn't or whatever, I don't know what I'm supposed to say about that. But now it's going to fall even worse. And it's just like, I don't know. For that size, he needed to come out and do what he said he was going to do and break Xavier Worthy's or at least get near Xavier Worthy's 40 time. And he wasn't. He was what? What did he get? Like not even that great. It was like a 4.45 or something like that.
It was a 4.39.
Oh, was it a 4.39? Okay, so I mean that's pretty quick, but like I don't know. Just for everything about him, I thought I wanted more and I didn't really get it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. It was funny that he was upset about it, and it's like, oh shit, yeah, I'd be upset if I told a bunch of people it's gonna be a badass, and then I was just like, eh, you know,
Yeah.
no one saw Matthew Golden coming out with the 4.29, and so
No.
get out, shine by your own teammate when you're threatening to beat the record of previous Longhorn. It's like, okay, like
Yeah.
kind of look foolish a little bit, but
Mhm.
I don't know. He does have some good aspects to his game. He was given plenty of space at the line because people are scared of going to get him beat deep. And he did do some good, nice burning that got him some open looks. And like you're saying, the comebacks and like the turn inside um, when threatening to go deep was really nice. I did think for his size, he was fairly physical, not like Xavier Worthy level where that guy was just a bigger person than anyone ever let him know he was.
Mhm.
That was decent, but you're right. The production is just awful. Um, and the yards per route run were pretty low. It's like 1.78. That's not very
Mhm.
impressive. Um, and another thing was that most of his second half of the season was just kind of garbage. Through week five, he had 364 yards, which was 72 yards per game. And then he only ended up with a season total of 540. So over the next 7 games or whatever, he was averaging, he had 7 games under 30 yards. So it was pretty kind of there's nothing to really project off of. Underperformed and got outshined by his teammates in a big way. So
Mhm.
I mean, it was a good team. It just didn't really need him to be successful. So
Yeah.
Jackson Dart, dude, you're just getting so lucky. You're so lucky all the time.
This is definitely our lowest seed that I think has made it to the Sweet 16, if I'm not mistaken. A 14
14, yeah,
seed.
I could see that. I
Yeah, I'd
could
have to go
see
back and
that.
look, but I think so. So on that note, 14 seed Jackson Dart, moving on while Isaiah Bond, you are done. That leaves us on our last matchup in the round of 32. And it's a good one. Uh,
Sure.
10 seed wide receiver Trey Harris out of Ole Miss going up against the 2 seed Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. Um, I love Golden. He is the sugar that I need in my life, so I definitely put him ahead, but I guess I'll let you kind of take this one and see if we disagree.
We do not disagree,
Okay.
but I do think Trey Harris is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
So I gotta say that for sure. Yeah, especially I watched several of his games, but the Texas A&M game was outstanding. Um, and he just kind of lined up on the outside the
Hmm.
whole game. And the first pass he got thrown was kind of a bad ball, but then he just like won consistently and nonstop for the rest of that game.
Yeah.
Um, and then that kind of just sums up like what I really liked about his game. um, the slants were crazy, like unstoppable. It's a
Hmm.
good mix of like footwork off the line of scrimmage to find space a little bit behind coverage. And he adjusted to some wonky balls. Like really watching him made me stock down on Jackson Dart just because
Mm.
of some of those
Some of the balls.
lopsided darts he was throwing to him. Um, but yeah, I don't know. All in all, I mean, his PFF grade was top, and everything he
Hmm.
did was outrageous. In that A&M game, he had two one-handed catches that were pretty next level, and like one of
Hmm.
them was called back on a penalty, and the other one was out of bounds. But like he showed that he had that skill set, and it was pretty awesome. And then in the red zone, he turns into kind of a different kind of monster. He's pretty beefy. He's 6'2", 205, but he's kind of like a thick guy, and he wasn't the fastest dude in the world. Only rolling up with the 4.54, but his RAS was still a 9.19. So
Hmm.
he definitely has some explosiveness to his game. Um, yeah, I don't know. There was just the history on him was pretty impressive. He's right at about 1,000 yards over the last 3 seasons. Started out with Louisiana Tech, and he's had 25 touchdowns over the past 3 years. So
Yeah.
really, just a consistent guy. Honestly, it kind of just broke my heart that he only played 8 games this past year
Hmm.
because he hit 1,000 yards in 8 years. You can't really be too sad about that.
Yeah.
And then his yards per route run were
Absurd.
5.12.
Yeah.
Like that's
Absurd.
unreal.
Yeah.
There's there's nothing like there's nobody that has ever done that. I mean, maybe, but I looked at the past 2 years, and last year it was Malik Neighbors, who was just below 4. And
Hmm.
then the previous year in 2022 college year, it was Puka Nacua. So maybe we should have seen that coming. He was leading as far as like relevant guys. So those guys are under 4, and this dude's doing a 5.12.
Yeah.
So pretty outstanding. Um, but yeah, I don't know. The yards after the catch is 7.7. It's not too bad. And then 17.2 yards per catch
Hmm.
and almost 80% reception rate. It's just like he was just a consistent guy
Yeah.
um, that just got it done. He got it done after the catch. He got it done at the catch. He got it done through his routes. I don't know. I'm a big fan of Mr. Harris. Hits the buzz saw for sure, but I don't know. Did you see something? I'm missing some bad stuff or something.
No, no, no. Well, I don't know. I like him. I do. And yeah, that yards per route run number is absurd. The next closest guy in the tournament was Torrey Horton with 4.45, who didn't play a full season. So, yeah, I mean, neither did Harris, but still pretty crazy to be that far ahead of everybody. Um, in terms of bad stuff, I guess I'll start there because you nailed a lot of what's great about him. I feel like he's a bit slow off the line. Takes him a second to like get to that top speed, but not like detrimentally slow. I think it's fine. It's just something I noticed. I do think maybe his routes could be more developed. Lots of hitch routes. He was targeted on, he got how many? 78 or 76 targets this season, and 28 of those were on hitch routes, which was by far the most out of any of his routes. Which again, not bad, but I just think he could develop that. And then he did like a lot of stuff up the seam, but he's great at contested catches. I mean, he had a great like Moss catch against LSU in the end zone where he just like reached over the defender's head and like snatched the ball away from him. So that's incredible to see. He's big and has a good catch radius, I think. And the first tape I turned on of him, he like completely torched two defenders going up on a go ball, was screaming down the field and then dropped a perfect pass.
Hmm.
So I went and checked out his drop numbers, and actually him and Golden both had 14 drops over the last 3 years total. So that's not like a
Gotcha.
real issue. It just was kind of funny. Uh, South Carolina, he had this really, really nice subtle stop and go that I was enamored with. Like slowed down and like really sold that he was turning around and waited basically until like paused and waited until the defender kind of jumped and then he took off. Ended up scorching the defender and ripping off a huge chunk of yardage. So there's a lot to like about him. I think his comparisons from like PFF and Player Profiler are weird. PFF has him compared to Alec Pierce. Um,
Barf.
yeah, which is weird. And then Player Profile compared him to Marquez Callaway.
Come on.
And I'm just kind of like, what? And then on the flip side, Golden's getting compared to Stephon Diggs and Santana Moss.
Yeah,
So like that's
it's a little different.
pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, there's a lot to like about Harris. I do think like there's some stuff that he could develop to be a really true guy, but he has like the build and the skill set to be like a really, really consistent guy on an offense. And like you said, he bailed out Jackson Dart out of some stuff. So I think he's going to get on a roster that, or if he gets on a roster that can take advantage of him, I'll be interested in him. I will say one last bad thing I forgot. PFF had him ranked in the sixth percentile for separation against single coverage, which is a bit
Oh,
concerning. Um, that's not great, but I mean, you never know with those kind of numbers. But I just wanted to throw that one out there. But overall, I did like Trey Harris. Like I said, I think if we put Golden and Tet and then like Travis Hunter, I forgot about Travis Hunter, but it depends on what he
nah.
plays. If they're in the first tier, and then the second tier is your Noel, your Higgins, your uh Royals. Forgot about him earlier
Heyo.
too.
Yeah.
And
Kyle
then
Williams. No, I'm just joking.
Apparently so, Kyle Williams. Yeah,
You
he's
can
getting a
put
lot of
Kyle
pop.
Williams in your third tier. That's
Yeah.
okay.
So there's some guys here. And I think Goal or Harris is like in that either second or third tier, depending on how many tiers you want to separate it into. And so I really do like him and will be really intrigued on where he goes. But like I said, Matthew Golden was like one of my first draft crushes of this offseason. So it's really hard. It's going to be really hard for me for anyone to beat him. So, yeah, I just from the offset, it would have taken a Herculean effort for Trey Harris to upset Golden, at least for me.
Well, you're gonna be really upset when I take him at the 1-6, and you could have just let me keep Drake London, and you could have had
Yeah,
Matthew Golden.
that
So
is fair. I will be upset.
that's all right. You can always reverse the trade
Yeah, we'll see.
again.
Again. Well, anyway, we've got our 2 seed, Matthew Golden moving on, and the 10 seed Trey Harris staying in the round of 32, which sets up a Southern bracket, Sweet 16 of Dylan Sampson versus Jack Bech, and Jaxson Dart versus Matthew Golden, which sets up an entire Sweet 16 of Genty versus Shadur Sanders, Tet McMillan versus Travis Hunter, Luther Burden III versus Quinshawn Judkins, Tyler Warren versus Jalen Noel, Omarion Hampton versus Bhayshul Tuten, Xavier Restrepo versus Cam Ward, and then, like I just said, Dylan Sampson versus Jack Bech, and Jaxson Dart versus Matthew Golden. So we are on the home stretch here. We'll have the Sweet 16 episode next week, and then the Elite Eight all the way to the finals the week after that. You got anything to add before we get on out of here?
No, this has been very enjoyable for me and the listeners. Christian, thank you very much.
Well, I hope so. I hope that's true. But until then, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.